Hey, folks, we're back with a fantastic word on the street. Fantastic, because it's the truly most interesting man in the world. Dear friend, the real life Indiana Jones, in my opinion, none other than New York Times best-selling author. And gosh, what has he not done? Dr. Ron Charles. How you doing, Dr. Ron?
Good, Brent. Pleasure being with you.
It's so great to be with you. Many adventures. You've had so many, throughout
Well,
history.
and you've been with me on some of those adventures,
I sure have. I
and
sure have.
you were
And folks, if you go to cubitfoundation.org, it's right there at the bottom of your screen. You're gonna go on a magical mystery tour for the real. I mean, incredible work that Dr. Ron Charles has been doing in Garbage City and Cairo, even with the government. Folks, I really couldn't tell you enough. Ron, we would have to have a whole series of shows just to cover the incredible adventure that God has had you on all of these years. I met you in 2009 at GLC Studios in what we call Studio B, or the Dungeon. And that day you recorded 12 shows. It blew my mind. You talked about things about Jesus that I'd never heard before. And it's just so good to see your face again. Those commercials that used to air in the early 80s and late 70s, there's more written about Jesus Christ, outside of the Bible, and human history. And I thought, well, where is it at? I mean, I finally found it with Dr. Ron Charles. How are you today, Dr. Ron?
I'm doing well. We are just trying to pack up. We leave for New England tomorrow, and so this is a nice little break.
Well, I tell you what, I'm glad that you made some time, my friend. Gosh, we were talking before the recording of this show. And of course, again, folks, go to the cubitfoundation.org at the bottom of your screen. It's there the entire time of the show. You can get involved. You can buy these incredible books about Jesus and the context of the parables and stories in the Bible you've heard all your life, but you haven't heard it like this. There are other accounts too that only support the Bible being true. But, from the prodigal son to the blind, to the leper being healed, to Lazarus, to the woman caught in adultery, to so much more details I promise you haven't heard before. Dr. Ron Charles spent so many years, I think it was over 30 years in the Middle
Actually,
East. What was that?
43 years.
I learned something new today. 43 years throughout Europe and Asia and the Middle East, studying ancient documents that only support the Bible.
We've been in Egypt for 33 years.
Oh, I know. My gosh. You went to Egypt, 33 years ago. A lot of you folks still don't know about Garbage City, and President El-Sisi, Egypt's Trump, they call him, he actually wanted Dr. Ron Charles to be the ambassador to Egypt. And of course, President Trump also wanted Dr. Ron in that group of ambassadors as well. Folks, we've talked about Ron Till before on other shows and how he gave that word to Dr. Ron Charles. But Dr. Ron, you have such a legacy already, decades before even those things happened. But, one of the many adventures that I've got to see you on, we were the first, I believe, 28 people in over 1,000 years allowed to do what we did, minister, the good news, not only to the persecuted church under presidential guard, but we also got to witness and give our testimony to people who are ambassadors from countries in the Middle East. And actually, Dr. Ron, you were told tonight's going to decide if the door's open or it's closed to Christianity.
That's exactly
in the Middle East. And you spearheaded that. Folks, you're going to find out about these things in coming days, weeks, and years. But such an honor to have you, Dr. Ron. And as we begin to start with the recording, you have a new book out about the patriarchs from an Egyptian perspective. Tell us about that.
Well, we all of us are probably familiar with the patriarchs as we read about them in the Bible and also in Jewish history, particularly Abraham and Joseph and Moses. And from Moses as an example, we know very little about Moses before his 40th birthday, and even not that much until after his 80th birthday. But the Egyptian history records volumes about Moses, what his life was like in Egypt before he went into exile when he was 40 years old, and then also when he led the Israelites out of Egypt when he was 80 years old. And so there's so much information that it can only be found in Egyptian history. And so I did some research in a number of different institutions about these three patriarchs, and fascinating, absolutely fascinating information. So the book is about pulling together the Egyptian history and meshing it in with biblical and Jewish history.
You know, when Dr. Ron, when someone says, what do you mean the Jewish? I'm obviously editing this. What do you mean? Dr. Ron, some people may ask, what do you mean the Egyptian perspective? Well, give us some of that. What's the Egyptian perspective of Moses that a lot of people haven't heard about?
Well, Moses was actually adopted. Not only was he found in the Nile as a baby, and Pharaoh's daughter took him into the household, she actually adopted him, and he became a son of Pharaoh, basically an adopted son, and he was heir to the throne of Egypt. And you kind of get that impression in the Bible, but the Egyptian history says it quite distinctly and specifically that yes, he was heir to the throne. And Moses is also the captain of the host of Pharaoh. He led the army of Pharaoh. He conquered Ethiopia, conquered Cush, conquered Libya, and all of this goes into great detail in Egyptian history.
Another Egyptian perspective is Joseph. They know him very, very well over there. Some of the imagery, you know, I mean, we actually stood at the cisterns in Saqqara at the side of one of the many silos of grain, you know, when Joseph basically not only saved his family, I believe he saved humanity. And they know of him. They love him. What would someone say if someone asks you I'm sorry, this is what I get for not sleeping. Dr. Ron, if someone asked you an example of the Egyptian perspective of Joseph, what would you say?
I would say that, the Bible talks about how Joseph saved the world. But the Egyptian perspective goes into great, great detail about what he did do and how he saved not only Egyptian people, but the people of the world. And that how before the 7 years of good and the 7 years of bad, Egypt had approximately 25% of the wealth of the world. And at the end of the 7 years of bad, they had 95% of the wealth of the world, because these countries, Lebanon, this country like Babylon and Syria, Sumer, and all of these various countries, they sold everything just to have grain, just to have food from Egypt. They sold their trade routes. They sold their cities and their people and everything. And so the Egyptians Joseph is quite a hero to the Egyptians. And the Egyptian history about Joseph is so fascinating. It just blows your mind on what type of things that Joseph did that had never been done before. It came out of his brain. And of course, we know that was caused by God dealing with him and showing him exactly what to do to prepare the world for this horrible experience. Before Joseph came on the scene, that entire region, all the way from the Arabian Sea to the Atlantic Ocean, was a very fertile, green, beautiful farmland. and cultivating that they could cultivate and grow tremendous crops. After the 7 years of bad, it became what is known now as the Sahara Desert.
Wow. Amazing. And so, you know, some of you folks will think, well, that makes a whole lot of sense. Of course, you know, Egyptians would have a fresh perspective of Joseph. He saved not only Egypt, but the whole world. However, here in America, where there's such a concentrated effort to snuff out the Bible and morality itself, you know, it's easy not, to be unaware of the fact that other parts of the world, they haven't forgotten history. They know history very, very well. And talking about history, you know, I mean, you've got, some would say, the father of three faiths, but Abraham, the Egyptian perspective of Abraham, you know, he went to Egypt, but you don't hear a whole lot in today's sermons. What would the Egyptian perspective be regarding Abraham?
Well, the Egyptian perspective concerning Abraham was that Terah, the father of Abraham, had three wives, and which was not unusual at that time.
Right.
And one of those wives was an Egyptian wife, and she was the daughter of the brother of Pharaoh at that time. And so Sarah was her daughter, and so Sarah in reality was a down the line heir to the throne of Egypt, and then now she's the wife of Abraham. And so when they got to Abraham. When they got to Egypt, then Abraham took Sarah into his harem as a political wife, and which meant that Abraham actually inherited the title of brother of Pharaoh and ambassador to Pharaoh, and so he actually was a high-ranking official through Sarah. And Abraham kept that title even after it was found that they had lied concerning who Sarah really was to Abraham. That really made no difference as far as Pharaoh was concerned. And Abraham was quite important, and he had quite a legacy in Egypt as a diplomat. Negotiating peace agreements with Nubia, negotiating peace with Ethiopia, with Midian, as well as with the Levant, which is present-day Israel. And so he was, you don't find that type of stuff except through Egyptian history.
Absolutely fascinating. Oh, man. You know, Dr. Ron, it never ceases to amaze me, the truths that you uncover just by digging. But you've had such incredible favor, I'd say divine favor, in having access to information that most Bible colleges have never heard of before, much less the average believer, you know, the average Christian. You know, folks, if you're searching, and of course, days like these, people are searching more than ever. They need hope. You know, it's not hard to believe the Bible is true now when you watch the news and you see the sinister, flat-out evil actions of people who seem to pull the strings and definitely own the media and attempt to shut the world down, you know. But Ron, you've always been a step ahead of the game. You've always been able to make inroads into places that normally people can't go. You know, there's a saying, you dream your dreams so big only God can make them happen. You have walked as an apostle, my friend. You don't call yourself that, but all the people's lives who've been touched by you, including mine and my family, and of course, you know, for so many years, the bags of hope that you've given to the widows of the Muslim Brotherhood massacres, and even well before then, you know, the widows and the orphans. You know, there's not a welfare system in place in Egypt like there is here in America. You don't see obese people so oppressed over there in Egypt. You know, you see a lot of hardship for those who go without, but you also see a beautiful people that you fall in love with, as I have, and such an entrepreneur spirit of the people of Egypt. The people of Egypt are a great people, Dr. Ron, and no wonder they love you. No wonder Their president loves you. And that doesn't even count the other countries that you're involved with as well. And folks, if you go to cubitfoundation.org right now, you're going to see unbelievable selection of resources that you can get educated with. Folks, if you're reading the Bible for the first time, you're going to want to have these. If you're a seasoned pastor, you're definitely going to want to go to cubitfoundation.org and get some real life history, accounts from other people about the amazing stories of Jesus and Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. The list goes on and on and on. You know, you don't have to limit yourself to Sermon Central and download that sermon. Pastors, if you want that fire back, if you want that passion for the word back, you're going to get to learn from Dr. Ron Charles of the Cubit Foundation. And Dr. Ron, as we're winding down, those bags of hope and all the things the Cubit Foundation does, even in South America, with orphanages and schools, you know, and so many great things. What can people do to get behind the Cubit Foundation as they minister to people all over the world through Bags of Hope?
Well, the Bags of Hope is, we give this bag of hope, which is a canvas bag about 1 meter tall, filled with food. Each widow gets one bag every 30 days. And it's enough to feed a widow and 4 children for an entire month. And we're giving about 1,300 of these a month to widows in Egypt, and that the same amount in South America, primarily in Nicaragua and Honduras, Guatemala, and Colombia. And then we also have the same program in India. And so this, and like you had mentioned, there's no such thing as a welfare check every month. If they don't get what we give to them, many of them will have nothing at all. And this is the culture that they've lived with for thousands of years, and unfortunately, it hasn't gotten any better. But we feel privileged to do that. So if folks want to help, you can adopt a widow for a bag costs $30, and you could feed that widow and 4 children for that amount every month if you choose to. We also have construction projects going on, particularly in Latin America, which they can become involved with if they wanted to.
So many incredible things happening with you, Dr. Ron, and the Cubit Foundation all over the world, folks. You know, there's a saying, you've heard me say it a lot of times before, get behind what God is doing. Find someone who's doing what God is doing and get behind them. People help people who help people. And I tell you, Dr. Ron, what an incredible ministry that's still going strong. And folks, get inspired, get educated on who Jesus is. Get educated on even more of the validity of the Bible, the Holy Scriptures.
Amen.
It's humanly impossible for that thing to exist, but it does. And it's a miracle every day. And it is alive and it is active. And it is active in you, Dr. Ron. An amazing ministry, amazing man, doing amazing things all over the world. That's thecubitfoundation.org. I can't wait to talk to you next time, Dr. Ron.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate
God bless you, folks. Go to thecubitfoundation.org today and go ahead and support what they're doing. Make a pledge. Get some great materials that will change your life and enhance your ministry, your knowledge of the word, and I believe your relationship with God and Jesus himself. Until next time, folks, we'll see you. God bless you. Hey, friends, this is Brant, about to do a newscast with Brigitte Gabrielle, and excited about all the things happening. But I got to thinking, I didn't record my Life Master word of encouragement for you. And I said that I would. So here's what I'm doing. Today's entitled, Don't Take the Bait. Now, what do I mean by that? Have you ever taken the offense before? I'm the champion at taking offense. I mean, I know better, but still I'm really good at it. And I remember seeing a sermon by Rick Godwin Great preacher. I'd love to interview Rick. I don't know what's happened to him, but Rick, if you're out there, contact me. I owe you a lot. But basically, in this sermon, I had to be 20 years ago, but it really set me free. He talked about taking the offense, and he said that the word offense in Texas is offense. Well, it's not a literal offense. That the word offense literally comes from the Greek word scandalon, which means bait. They would dig a pit. Sometimes they'd put spikes in that pit. They would cover that up with leaves and brush, and they would put the scandalon. They would put the bait. They would put the offense on that trap. And that's what it is. So when we're tempted to take the offense and we take the bait, we fall into that pit at our own peril. But the good news is that we can decide when to get out of that pit. How many times have you taken the offense? And man, it threw you off for a while. Golly, man, I've done that a lot. You take the bait, you fall into the pit, and you're there writing on the wall all the wrongs done to you. And how many days it's been since the offense happened, and will they apologize? The good news is you can get out of the pit anytime you want. But I am the champion at taking offense, and I've learned from some very loving people who've reminded me, that in this life walk, in this quest of trying to help people and trying to do the right thing, there will always be more than enough chances to take the offense. And when someone offends you, they're rejecting you. It may be overt rejection. It may be covert rejection. Overt rejection is I'm rejecting you, or I'm coming against you, or I'm opposing you. But covert rejection can be more sinister. It can be betraying a trust. It could be backstabbing. It could be defaming somebody. Whatever the case is, rejection's rejection, and people can easily take offense when they're rejected. But the good thing about breaking the cycle of rejection, and what I want you to picture a swirl, okay? This swirl is a cycle of rejection. Someone makes you feel rejected, or they don't make you feel anyway. They do something and you feel or think that you're rejected. Covert, overt, doesn't matter. Rejection feels the same, right? So then you take the offense, you take the bait. And if you're not careful, then you reject your rejectors, and then you become rejectable. And if you turn that on its side, it's a tornado. It destroys everything in its path. I've said it before. A person at war with themselves makes casualties out of friends and family. Been there, folks. We're in this together. Most of my encouragement to you is just don't do the stupid stuff I've done. I've learned a lot of things the hard way, and I've learned from others' mistakes as well. But take it from me. Don't do what I've done. Don't take the offense. Don't fall for the cycle of rejection, being rejected, feeling rejected, taking that offense, rejecting my rejectors, and becoming rejectable, so that when I'm around that person, I hate who I am. Have you ever been there? You've been around somebody who's offended you, or is a serial offender, and you hate who you are? But instead, what we do is when we see an opportunity to take the offense, we don't take the offense. We walk around that trap. We don't take that bait. We don't take the scandalon, and we're not scandalized. We walk around that offense, and we're free. And if we've taken offense, we can forgive that person. If that person is dead, we can write a letter, burn it. If that person's alive, we can write them a letter. Whatever the case is. But for you to be free, you can let go of the offense. You can climb out of that pit anytime you want. You can break that cycle, that tornado of rejection, just by not taking the offense and remembering who you are. Remember, you've got a destiny to fulfill. And I hope that you fulfill it. I hope that you're encouraged today, folks. There's a lot of storms. There's a hurricane this weekend. Well, there's a lot of storms in life. But you know what? In a world where there's no shortage of people who are offended by everything and taken off track of their destiny by anything, you can choose not to take the offense, to not take the bait, to not fall into the trap, to let them go. So I want to thank my sweet sister, Melissa, for speaking into my life and reminding me about what I talk about. And also Kim Foster, your incredible ties that you have blessed this operation with. But folks, I hope that you are offense free today and this weekend. And as long as you can be, just forgive them. Forgive those people. Forgive yourself. You know, the way you feel around people is usually how they feel about themselves. Did you know that? You ever get around someone that, man, I just feel itchy, right? I feel down. Right? There's a good chance that's how they feel about themselves. So be encouraged today. Don't take the offense. Walk on, love, forgive. Be hard to offend. Don't give us so much of your emotional investment into people that it's easy to offend you. How do you do that? Well, you stop caring what people think. You love them, but you don't care about the opinions of people that don't know who they are or haven't done anything. They haven't been anywhere. They haven't accomplished anything. They're just critics. Plenty of those around. But you just keep walking towards the light. You love people and use things, and when necessary, release them from the offense, from the scandalon, from the bait, and be free. So God bless you. Hey friends, this is Brant. Years ago, I discovered a secret that enabled me to navigate this reality, to live a fearless life, free from anxiety, where nothing was impossible for me. That's how I live, and that's what I want for you. If you want to have a fearless life, free of anxiety, to live in joy and success and fulfillment, walking out your destiny and living out your purpose, you got a better chance of doing that if you read The Red Pill Prophet, October 31st on Amazon.com. Get it in your hands. The Truth of the Red Pill Prophet, October 31st on Amazon.com.